I've always been a massive fan of earthbending. So when I watched Toph metal bend for the very first time, I about lost my mind. So what would happen if you took away One for All, but instead you gave Izuku or Deku a quirk that allowed him to metal bend? Well, that's what we're going to find out in this brand new What If. What if Deku had a metal manipulation quirk? Izuku Midoriya. Yes, the main character, Deku, was born with a quirk. But this quirk was a little bit different than you would possibly imagine. Now, when at a young age of about 4 or so, he would go to the doctors. His mother and him would walk into the doctor's office, and the doctor would begin to speak, talking to Izuku and also his mother. They would speak about what his quirk is like and, well, what he can do with it. He would learn that his quirk is some sort of metal bending, maybe even metal manipulation. Yes, this is broad, and yes, Izuku has no idea how he'll utilize this, at least at a young age, especially because he's only 4 years old. But at the same time, he's interested. What's gonna happen? What is he gonna be able to do? How is he gonna do it? He's not so sure. Well, his mother would be listening pretty intently. She would ask a bunch of questions about how his quirk would work, but the quirk doctor, of course, would say that he really doesn't have that much of a clue. But his quirk seems to be extremely strong. I mean, it seems to have a lot of potential. Izuku is happy to at least hear this. And Inko begins to just try to think about any ways for him to utilize his quirk. Izuku would head out, and obviously head out with his mother, and they would begin to drive home. Izuku would begin to think about what he can do, what he'll be able to do, what can he do, anything. He's just beginning to think more and more. But while driving down the road, he looks up while he's looking at his hands, and he sees a car barreling toward them. His mother tries to swerve and is able to get out of the way, but as she does, it seems as if they're about to slam right into a metal pole. Izuku would scream and put his hands out, and as he does, the metal pole would bend around them, as if, well, it braces their impact but doesn't even put a dent in the car, as if he turned the metal into this soft material and then spread it all around the car itself, like a giant pillow. It might sound crazy, but out of a complete necessity, he was able to do this. His mother is completely shocked, as the pole would eventually go back to normal after they back up from the pole. She's obviously happy that he was able to save them, but confusion would be all over her face. How was he able to do that? That was insane. How was he able to manipulate metal in such a way, and he just figured out what his quirk was? He just used it. I mean, like I said, of course, out of necessity, many humans, doesn't matter what age, can truly do some amazing things. Izuku making a giant pole into a pillow-like fabric seems to be practically impossible, but at the same time, just insane. Izuku would head home with his mother, and they would both be pretty happy. It seems like Izuku's gonna be an amazing hero. He just needs to start working, start training, and getting ready. Izuku would be happy to hear this, and he would just do small things with metal. We're talking about he would get small little metal balls and kind of just throw them up and down and have them levitate, and he would try to mold them in certain ways. Of course, this is pretty difficult. I mean, he's doing it without pure being scared or being terrified or being mad, being sad, whatever. No emotions are involved, so it takes a lot more focus. But in doing this, he's really reminding himself over and over again how he should be manipulating metal, how he should be utilizing it, how he should be bending it. It's something that Izuku wants to figure out. It's as if it's like some sort of flow state, you could call it. He's just throwing them up and down, swinging them around his hands, making them float around him, and so on. He would do this, and it was like a cool little party trick. Actually, when he would go to school the next day, he would show this off. and everybody would be excited. They would think it's sick. I mean, what does he have? Some form of levitation? And Izuku would say, no, it's actually just some sort of metal bending, metal floating, or something like that. He didn't really understand it fully, but he's able to do some cool things. Of course, Izuku stays away from telling his classmates that they straight up almost died in a car crash, but still, he was able to save his mother that day, so it's kind of just proof that the strength that he has is kind of insane, at least in the grand scheme of things. Izuku would continue working, continue training, and continue using his quirk. While he's at school, he would more or less use his quirk underneath his desk over and over again just to continue the usage of it. He wants to make sure he gets it down, and eventually he wants to use anything around him, any metal, anything that has metal in it. He wants to be able to casually flick it to his hand or casually move it around. Same thing if he goes out and has to move something, he can more or less put some metal inside of it. Maybe it's a giant drawer. Putting metal inside that drawer would allow him to pick up the drawer with relative ease. So Izuku would just help out around the house with his quirk, and this would be in a way for him to train. It'd be a way for him to just get used to it, get ready and prepared, and it would give his mother a chance to, well, relax sometimes. I mean, as a single mother, she must be stressed out all the time. And frankly, that's exactly what it is. So it's nice for her to have a couple time off or a couple hours off and stuff like that. So it's cool. I mean, he gets to give her that time off and they both can have, well, some free time. He would continue to keep up with his studies, continue to work as much as possible, and just flat out trade. I mean, that's what he would need to do, that's what he needs to do, and that's what he will do. And for over this time, he'll be very rational about it. He doesn't want to get himself hurt or anything, but that's what he does. He trains a bit here and there. He helps around the house with his quirk, and he's able to just have a good time throughout his middle school years and his younger years and so on. Izuku would finally get to the end of school, the end of middle school, of course, and he would begin to just speak with the people around him. While he's talking to everybody, the teacher would finally walk inside the classroom. The teacher would begin talking about what they're going to be doing, what he wants to see, and talks about giving them some sort of evaluation for what job they should be doing. But that ends up not happening because he knows everybody wants to do their own hero thing and wants to be heroes all around. So he throws the papers in the sky and tells them just that. He tells them all that he knows they all want to go the hero route, in which that is true. But there's very few people in that classroom that are even capable of doing so. That's, well, two people, Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo. But Bakugo makes it very clear, very, very clear, that Izuku's not even going to be close, not even close to keeping up. He won't even stand a chance once they truly begin to fight and once they truly begin to show what they have. Izuku doesn't listen much to Bakugo. I mean, this is what he always does. Rambles on and on about how he's better at this and better at that. Izuku doesn't necessarily care, so he doesn't necessarily listen. He just sits there and just awaits the teacher to continue on, but Bakugo then is about to slap him in the back of the head. But as Bakugo goes to do this, a marble of some sorts would be in his sleeve and would be pulling back his arm. Izuku would tell Bakugo that that's not the best choice. Definitely not the best choice. Don't try to sneak him. Don't try to cheap shot him. That's something that's villains do, right? Of course, Bakugo would move back his hand, throwing the marble back at Izuku as it would stop before even hitting him and enter his pocket once again. Izuku would shake his head as the teacher would explain to them everything else that needs to happen, and about Bakugo and Izuku going to UA. Now this is an amazing thing for them, and the teacher says that they're going to make all of them so proud and they can't wait to see what they can do as future heroes. But there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of hurdles that they're going to have to jump through, and of course they know that. I mean, there's no way around it, and that's just the reality of it. So Izuku and Bakugo would listen to the rest of the class and whatever would happen next, and they would eventually leave. Izuku would be confronted by Bakugo. Bakugo would tell him to not make a fool out of him. There is no way Izuku's getting into UA, at least not ahead of Bakugo, or not ahead of himself. Bakugo says he'll be leagues above Izuku. His quirk is better, he's just flat out a better hero. Izuku disagrees, saying that they'll have to see in the near future, but he's pretty sure that he has Bakugo beat. Bakugo would get real mad about this, be really angry about Izuku even saying something like this, but Izuku doesn't really say much after it. He leaves and continues to write in his journal. When writing in his journal, Izuku would write down all of the different ways that he can truly utilize his metal manipulation quirk, and there are a lot of ways for him to do so. It's really a wide range of ideas when you think about it. A range from, well, maybe creating weapons to more or less using it as protection, kind of like what he did against Bakugo. But there's a lot of different ways to use it, and frankly, at the end of the day, there may be too many ways to use it. I mean, it might end up being where, well, he might kind of run out of ideas pretty soon and run out of the creativity of it. But still, he's pretty well off in terms of what he's been doing and what he's going to continue doing. So he's happy to know that, well, he can at least get through the majority of more or less the ideas that he has on paper already. Izuku would be writing things down as he walks under a bridge. When he walks under that said bridge, though, he hears something behind him. It's as if the metal pipes underneath him are creaking, and as if everything around him is telling him to move. Izuku's confused, but as he is confused, he sees a manhole cover smash open into the ceiling or underneath the bridge, and a giant sludge-like monster appears. The sludge-like monster would be holding the manhole cover that it's on top of his head, soaking it into his body. Izuku would be shocked to see this, and the sludge villain would come charging after Izuku, full speed. But as Izuku begins to run away, he realizes something. The manhole cover just went within the sludge villain. He puts out his hand, and the manhole cover is actually made of mostly metal. He's shocked to feel this because he can actually sense it, and he pushes the sludge villain backwards, and actually pushing him back a good bit. As Izuku is holding back the sludge villain, he can feel more and more metal within the sludge villain's body. It seems odd. It's as if he can sense metal all around him, but in that small instant, it would all go away. He would hone back in on the sludge villain, and every piece of that villain he would hold still. His hands felt like they were beginning to crack, but he would hold them still, and eventually he would hear a loud thud. And then on top of that, a loud blast of wind. The wind would whistle through underneath the bridge and underneath the bit that they're currently at. And that whistle of sound would then slam into the sludge villain, breaking him apart and shattering all that is within him. Izuku would look to see a glimpse of this giant person. He would get sent flying, but able to recover slightly by grabbing onto a pole and mending his fall. Izuku would look up to see the one and only All Might. All Might is there to save the day, and once again, he's able to shut down another villain. He gets help from Izuku to patch up and grab all the substance from the sludge villain, in which Izuku takes some of the metal that is currently sparsed all over the ground to make a container to contain all of it in one object. Izuku gives it to All Might, but is still really shocked. I mean, he's staring at All Might intently, seeing that, well, this is the #1 hero. This is the person he's been idolizing for so long. Izuku is happy to see him here and happy he was able to save him, but he has so many questions. But the only thing that could really utter out of his mouth is if he can get an autograph. Eventually getting the autograph, which, let's be honest, isn't that much of an autograph. It kind of just says All Might and that's about it. But still, he's happy to get something. He asks All Might if the path to being a hero is something that he could truly go down. He wants to be a UA student. He wants to be just like him. All Might says that he can definitely be a hero, 100%, but don't shoot to be just like him. Shoot to be better than him. All Might would jump off with the small metal box containing the sludge villain, and Izuku would watch as his hero would jump building to building, leaving. Izuku would nod as if he can feel this rush of adrenaline from the idea that All Might just presented. Be better than him. Izuku hears that ring in his mind over and over and over again as he heads back home. He begins to tell his mother what happened, and of course she's concerned, but at the same time, she's never seen Izuku so motivated in his life. He begins training, working, and just drilling himself over and over again, using the metal that he has in his pockets and obviously the stuff that he holds onto himself to basically manipulate and utilize in every scenario he can possibly see that fits. He begins to look at YouTube videos of fighting and other Japanese masters that are insanely good at martial arts, and Izuku would utilize his own style, implementing it into his fight style and how he would fend off villains. He would more or less go to different parks and kind of spar with trees. It might sound crazy, but he would act as if the tree was someone he was fighting. He would circle, he would dip in and out, and he would move and utilize the metal he has in different and various ways, being that of a circular format, liquefying the metal and then reforming it in more of like a hula hoop type of shape, and then utilizing that metal to disperse it, shooting into the tree's roots or the legs, quote unquote, and also the arms and so on. Just target practice. And sometimes he would even form the metal into weaponry, realizing that if he can make a bow staff on a whim, he might be able to more or less catch people off guard. A bow staff, maybe even like a small little dagger. Yes, he doesn't want to kill somebody, but at least it could put a slow to somebody that is moving at insane speeds toward him. With that said, though, the training was a massive part of Izuku's game plan. Work as hard as possible and get ready for what's to come. Get ready to be a hero. Yeah, he has hurdles, and yes, he's gonna have to go through the entrance exam, but everything seems to fit in place for him. All like just one big jigsaw puzzle. This one big puzzle piece. That's all Izuku can think about. And finally, the day would come. Finally, the day of the UA entrance exam would be on the horizon. He studied, he trained, and he worked hard. And now it's time to prove exactly what he can do. He would begin walking over, and as he walks over, he begins to shuffle through his pockets, making sure he has everything he needs. But just as he's looking through his pockets, he trips. He trips and everything goes flying everywhere. But before he can faceplant on the ground, some girl stops him from actually faceplanting on the ground. Her name is Ochako Uraraka, someone that has some sort of gravity like Quirk. He's floating and he immediately manipulates metal so that, well, they go back into his pocket. He was trying to look around and see if he had everything and just double checking, but frankly he could have sensed that he had everything and he was just, let's be honest, just overly nervous. Still though, I mean, it's kind of something that Izuku would do. He's extremely nervous a lot of the time, and this would be no different. Even in front of a girl, yes, he's had more social interactions and he was a lot more popular, but being the awkward self he is, I mean, he could barely even talk to her, saying hi and thank you, and that's really about it. She leaves and heads into the UA entrance exam area, and Izuku would do the same. Izuku would sit by Bakugo, not obviously by option or by his own warrant. He actually had to sit by him based on a placing card, in which he does, but Bakugo just kind of yaps his ear off, talking about how there's no way he's going to win, no way he's going to be better than him, and yeah, you know, the normal Bakugo things. Still though, Izuku keeps his head on a swivel, ready to go, staying locked in entirely because he knows it's all up to this. He knows that all that matters is what is to come. So he waits present Mike to speak about what's going to happen. He hears about the practical, but also the written. The written is relatively easy for Izuku. I mean, he's not super dumb. I mean, he's pretty smart. Far good enough to at least excel in the written portion of the exam. What is to come is kind of what's supposed to be the challenging part. you got a bunch of robots, and Present Mike explains just that. I mean, there's a ton of robots. They're harder based on, well, the number of points they can give, but there's something that's, well, wasn't really proportioned for Izuku himself, and that's the fact that they're made of metal. I mean, I think we could all guess this. Izuku would walk in and look around, and he would await the gates to swing open, and he would just be ready, locked in, and just ready to go. Once the gates swung open, he would immediately dart off, sprinting as fast as possible. Many others behind him say he's cheating, saying that, oh, well, he's not allowed to leave until well, they say go. But it's not true. President Mike actually says that there's no countdown in a real battle, so they better get going right now or they're going to get left in the dust. Izuku, already ahead, he's now destroying robot after robot, but he's using the robots to destroy each other. He's literally controlling all of them. Izuku thinks of something funny and thinks he should do something that would off-put everyone else. I mean, he's feeling real competitive right now, and he knows damn well that Bakugo is thinking the same thing. He uses the metal on the side of the buildings to create kind of like a makeshift ladder, turning it into some sort of like a propellant to allow him to go up. He lands on the top of a building, and he looks over the top, seeing a ton of robots all around. He smiles, and all he can think about is being able to just destroy all of them in a matter of seconds. He begins to focus as hard as possible as the smile grows wider on his face, and Izuku would clench his fist, and a ton, and I mean a ton, the mass majority, probably 85% of the robots would implode, obliterating, and everybody would be in complete shock. I mean, what the hell just even happened? How did he even do that? Everyone's completely angry on top of it because this kid just stole all the points. How are they even gonna pass now? Izuku kind of laughs about this, and the speaker actually comes on talking about how there's actually not really enough robots now for anybody else to pass. Izuku finds this to be absolutely hilarious. I mean, he just did all of that in one fell swoop. They really shouldn't have made something like this so easy for someone like him. I mean, come on. If anybody else had some sort of metal or some sort of electricity manipulation type of quirk, well, I mean, it would have been game over for all of them. Maybe they'll have to think about changing up this whole thing they got going here. Izuku would then just hear the sirens blare once again, and they would tell him and everybody else that they'll be going home for the day. And for the person that destroyed all of them, they know who it is. And congratulations, they got into UA. Izuku would kind of laugh this off as he hovers his way back down to the ground using some metal poles, and he just leaves. I mean, that's about it. I mean, he's excited. I mean, he made his imprint. He made his idea and him being the best shown. And now everybody knows what he's capable of and what he can truly do. And that's all that matters to Izuku. That's all he could think about. All Izuku wanted to do was prove that he's the best. Maybe it's a Bakugo pressuring him thing, or maybe it's just for the fact that he just wants to show everyone else that he can truly do some extraordinary things. And, well, he was able to do just that. He would head home and tell his mother the news, and his mom would be insanely proud of him. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? Izuku is setting himself for an amazing journey to be a hero. His powers seem to be accelerating and getting stronger by the day, and it seems like, well, he can't miss. It seems like he's just going to continue to grow and continue to get stronger every single time he steps foot on any surface. And now it's time for him to take the next leap, and that's into UA. After some time and after waiting a little bit, he would finally hear back from UA. He knows he made it, but they still have to send out the messages via formality. And Izuku would get his little message, hearing that he made it from the one and only All Might. All Might would tell him exactly how he did, and, well, it's just flat out impressive. The #1 student in the entrance exam. That's a hell of a thing. Izuku would smile as he nods, listening to All Might speak about this, and All Might would tell him that he has a lot more work to be done, but he can tell that Izuku's progression is going to be insane. Some time would pass, and finally Izuku would head off to UA. The first day was upon him, And when he would arrive in the classroom, he would speak with many, many students. People ranging from Tenya Ida, who's more or less that class nerd that wants everybody to do the right thing. Momo, who is the class nerd, but at the same time pretty well put together. And some other people that are around as well, excluding Bakugo. He doesn't really want to talk to Bakugo, especially after the fact that he got first place, and now Bakugo is tripping out, thinking that Izuku did something underhanded. But yeah, of course he didn't. I mean, that's just Bakugo being Bakugo. With that said, though, not much time would pass, and eventually it would lead to Aizawa walking in. Aizawa would walk in and immediately tell all of them to get ready and get prepared, because they're going to be testing all of their strengths, all of their weaknesses, and seeing how strong they really are. He points toward Izuku, saying that this is the kid that broke their system in terms of the UA entrance exam, so they can thank him for harder tests in the future. Izuku shrugs his shoulders a little bit, but Bakugo is just pissed to hear this. He wanted to be the one to break the system. He wanted to be the one like All Might. He wanted to show everybody that he was the powerful one. But let's be honest, Bakugo was strong, extremely powerful. But the one issue is that the entrance exam catered toward Izuku's abilities so heavily. So of course he broke the system. I mean, it was kind of just an eventuality. It was going to happen eventually, no matter what. Of course, though, they would go on like normal. The Quirk assessment test would be an interesting, very interesting, way to see how everybody's quirk is. Izuku is kind of having to get extremely creative. The tennis ball throw, or the baseball throw, excuse me, he would have to utilize metal that he has on him to mostly surround the ball and allow it to more or less throw extremely far. He's not going to get infinity. He's going to get it pretty darn far, but nothing insane. He watches as Ochako gets infinity and watches as all these other people do actually better than him. And that's just going to happen. Izuku in this regard isn't going to be in the best position possible, but still, he's okay with that. He's not he's not really tripping about how strong or how powerful other people are based on one little regiment. It doesn't really matter to him. In terms of the other portions of the quirk assessment, he does extremely well. I mean, he does extremely well on everything. He, like I said, gets really creative with what he has to do and how he does it and so on. So in an overall grand scheme of things, he actually does extremely well. Does he get number one? Probably not. He gets pretty darn close to number one, in the top 3 at least, bare minimum, and there was no fear of him getting expelled by Aizawa. But of course Aizawa would come around and basically say that it was all a ruse to make them try their hardest. But even Izuku feels a little bit uneasy about that statement, believing that he's kind of lying about it. But still, he's not going to question it. It's none of his business anyways. Izuku would listen to Aizawa as he speaks more and more about what's going on and what's happening, and all Izuku can think about is the training that's going to follow ahead. What in the world are they going to do next? They did something really basic in all reality right now, but what are they going to do next time? What is the training going to look like next time? And the next day he would get that answer, especially when the door would blast open and the one and only All Might would be standing in front of them. Yes, All Might, the pro hero that is above all pro heroes, the pro hero that has changed society forever, that's broken the criminal rate or the crime rates and has more or less brought peace to Japan for so long. This is the one who's going to be teaching them, and this is the one who's going to be showing them the ropes. With one I am here walking through the door like a normal person, he would tell them all to get ready, get on their hero outfits, and get ready for some heroes versus villains training. Izuku sees this as a way to finally take on, even greater challenges. That includes going head to head with his rival, Bakugo. So when he hears that it's him and Ochako Uraraka versus Bakugo and Tenya Ida, all he can think about is how he's going to show Bakugo how much better he truly is than him. Izuku is ready to take down Bakugo and show him that there's no chance of him keeping up. With that said, though, we're going to have to leave that off to the next part. If you enjoyed part 1 of What If Deku had a metal manipulation quirk, leave a like, leave a sub, and leave a comment down below. I'm sorry about how long it took me to make a video to come out. I've been kind of dealing with some stuff, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna go through or go too in depth with what's going on, but just know I'm gonna try to get content out for y'all. I know this is coming out late, but still, I hope y'all enjoy it. I love all y'all, and I love all the support that y'all give me, so I hope I can give good enough content out to y'all. With that said, hope y'all enjoyed, and hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.